So, Jennifer, we spoke a second ago about how you would help your clients figure out the best working structure for themselves, for their energy, for their focus. And then before we recorded this call, we were chatting a bit about an example where people should check in with themselves on that, kind of realizing what their best structure would be and what might occur when, you know, a superior or manager comes to you and says, I want you to do it this way at this time, or maybe they're getting back to the office and they're getting their productive schedules they found for themselves in the last year are getting moved around a bit. So I wanted to ask you, what sort of boundaries could you set, or what sort of control could you come back when someone's asking you to do something in a way that actually doesn't suit your better energy, your better work, or the better routines you found for yourself in the last year?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to connecting with yourself and knowing what works for you. And I think in many scenarios, what I've seen with people is that they can become quite frustrated. So work structure is set up in a certain way, and they keep being frustrated with the same things over and over again, where maybe there's a certain time where they need to do a lot of calls, or a certain time that they have reserved to write reports, where every time it's a real struggle and it's a challenge, and they've never actually checked in with themselves to see, is this a good time for me to be doing this? Maybe it's set out in a company in a kind of structure, but I think, the main goal for managers is always to get their people to do their best work. So if they don't know how you work best, they're going to maybe offer you a suggestion. But the main part is always to figure out, okay, how do I work best? And if I know how I work best, I can communicate that as well. So with clients, it's really important for them to check in with their days. And if there's frustration in certain parts of their role, is to figure out, what is making it difficult in that moment? And is it something in their daily structure that they could change? Or is it something that they could implement in their day? So let's say if it's, straight after lunch, is there something that they could do on their lunch break to give themselves a breakaway, to switch off from work, to get back to their work re-energized? Is it certain, coffee breaks that actually tend to be a distraction? Is the caffeine not really sitting well, so it's making them really anxious when they're having to sit down and write a report? So it's very simple things, and it sounds really straightforward, but it's often things people don't really think about, to connect to themselves and check in with themselves to see, how does this actually work for me? If it's something that comes up every day or every week, can I change that around, and can I build a structure around that to really be productive in this type of task that I'm doing? What do I need to be successful in that?
There's two things I'd love to expand on there. So when you've said checking in with yourself to find out, what does checking in with yourself mean practically? Does that mean, is that a simple turn of phrase where you're like, think about it? Or do you mean, take Saturday morning sometime and really look at how you worked last week? And so, what does checking in with yourself sort of mean for you and your clients?
That's a good question, actually, Kevin. And I think it kind of depends on, what you're looking at. I suppose from a mindfulness perspective, a really good way to check in with yourself is to observe yourself. So one of the really important parts of checking in with yourself is also not to judge yourself. Because when you check in, you might think, oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I should be doing this. So it's really not judging yourself on where you are or how you are performing, but observing yourself and becoming more aware so that you can implement changes to improve that. So that's a really important critical part, is to leave that inner critic aside. So park that and really, bring up your inner observer. And then, if you want to write...
Sorry to come over, but you were about to say maybe writing, but I was going to say, does that mean journaling? Does that mean meditating after the workday every day, or taking a monthly review? What might it look like in real practical sense for people watching?
Yeah, and good to make it practical as well. And I was just going to say, you could write it down if that's what you prefer. I think for me, journaling can be really powerful. And there's actually a lot of research done on the difference in when you're thinking, or when you're talking, or when you're typing out stuff, or when you're writing. So it's really that connection to your pen on paper and writing down your thoughts or your observations. It can be really, help you to move and process the words that you're putting down. And I think one of the things that came up for me lately is that you can think many thoughts at the same time, but you can only really write down one word at a time. So it makes it more specific, and it helps you to organize your thoughts as well. So in mindfulness, what you could do is write down what are your thoughts, and without really judging what's coming up, and you can free flow write as well, and just write down any thoughts that are in there, what's on top of mind. Then write down your emotions. So what is it that you're feeling? What resonates with you in that moment? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excited? What's your emotional state? And then also write down what are your physical sensations. So what is your body telling you? And trying to really break them up and split them up. So observe them separately. And over time, it could help you to maybe find links in between and see, is there something that's affecting each other? When you're writing down that you're really anxious and you're writing down that you're really hungry, maybe it's a sign you should have some lunch in your day. And that's just a really simple example, but it's really becoming aware of yourself and what works and what you could change in your day to make your day more productive and more successful.